Loss, impairment of moral judgment. Isn't that an interesting one? That was a new one for me. And often there's severe yawning. Even in severe cases of sleep deprivation, there is even the possibility of hallucinations, and sometimes symptoms similar to ADHD are experienced. And then the immune system is impaired. And then we raise the risk of diabetes type 2. We used to call this maturity onset diabetes. And then we have an increase of the heart rate and the variability in the heart rate. And our risk of heart disease is increased because of sleep deprivation. And there's, of course, finally a decreased reaction time and accuracy. And again, with extreme sleep deprivation, there can actually be muscle tremors and aches. And other responses can be growth suppression for those of, for our kids and for our young people. An increased risk of obesity and a decrease in body temperature are some of the symptoms because of a lack of sleep. So how is your sleep program? How's your, how is your sleep hygiene is what they call it. Do you have a regular hour to get to bed? Regularity of health practice is important to set a rhythm of life. And so if you're varying by significantly the time at which we retire or when we get up in the morning, it has an effect upon our overall punctuality and upon our health. And so we need to get to bed at a decent hour. I know there are some of you saying, but I'm a night person. You still need to get to bed at a decent hour. Listen, this staying up until midnight, 1 and 2 o'clock habitually is damaging. Your quality of life is really being affected. Turning night into day and day into night is what is happening with many when it comes to this matter of sleep deprivation. The National Sleep Foundation, this is what we know statistically, back in 2001, the average U.S. citizen was 38% were getting enough sleep, that is 8 or more hours of sleep. Only 38% of this group, according to the statistics, are getting at least the 8 hours that most of us really need. I'm going to ask you to raise your hand to find out how much sleep you are getting. But in 2005, that had deteriorated to 26% were getting enough sleep. That is 1 in 4. 25% of us are getting enough sleep. 75% of us are not getting adequate sleep. And so it's an important issue that we have to come to terms with. And now here comes the time for the speaker to make his confession. Early in my ministry, I went through a very hard experience, and it affected my sleep. The Lord got me through that experience, but it affected my sleep for a lot of years. I went through a period in which I was averaging about 3 hours of sleep a night, and you cannot really function with 3 hours of sleep a night. And I'm not into the caffeine thing. I'm into the hot and cold shower thing and the running thing, but so I didn't use artificial means to keep me awake. But then I finally settled in. For years I was getting along with 5 to 6 hours of sleep, and I thought that I was functioning pretty well on 5 to 6 hours of sleep a night. And I remember my dad as he entered into midlife. I remember as we would be in the family room, maybe we would be watching some TV, but about 8 o'clock, 8:30, somewhere in there, he would be nodding off. He would be falling asleep. And I found myself, as I was entering into midlife, yes, I'm in my midlife. I'm no longer a young adult. I wouldn't be surprised at that at all, but anyway. And I thought, well, that's just the way it is. You're getting older. I found myself going through the same thing, just nodding off in the middle of the night. It wasn't time to go to bed yet, but I was nodding off. I couldn't keep asleep. I was chewing on gum. I was doing whatever I could do to keep myself asleep. I decided, because I've been teaching these things for a long time, that I really needed to do something about it. I had conditioned myself so that I was having problems. And I would find that I conditioned myself so that about 3:30, 4 o'clock in the morning, I would wake up, and then I would have trouble getting back to sleep. I will not ask how many of us here have that problem on occasion. And so I decided, and I had this automatic clock in my head that would go off at 6:30 in the morning, right on the dot. I never had to set an alarm clock. And so again, I decided some years ago, it's time for me to come to grips with this. And I decided I'd learn to sleep in a little bit. I hadn't done that in years. I can actually sometimes even, on a rare occasion, I can sleep in as late as 8 o'clock in the morning. Wow, for me, that just has never happened since my youth or as a young adult that I could do that. But I had made the determination to get at a minimum the 7.5, and really ideally the 8 hours of sleep. And I invite you to take whatever steps you need to do. The specialty that you need to see is a pulmonologist. They're an expert in this area of sleep disorder. They will help you to reset your circadian rhythms, which have been affected by improper sleep hygiene or sleep practices. And in fact, you have a number of them in the area. I had to choose from among them. But I would recommend the South Texas Sleep Disorder Clinic. I don't know what Marlene, Sister Marlene, who is an internist, would recommend. Do you know the sleep disorder programs locally? I should have talked to you ahead of time, Marlene. But anyway, the South Texas Sleep Disorder Clinic. And there's the address, and there's the phone number. Do you have a pen? My friend, you don't have to live with this year after year after year. Get in there, let them do an evaluation, and then let them help you. They will support you. Okay? So I encourage you to do that. In fact, you will find it linked on the ministry website at www.lifediscoveryministries.com. And you'll find some useful information from this particular sleep disorder program. Okay, and then happiness. This is going to be the last one. This one is more subjective in nature. And again, if you look at the women during the course of the 9 years now we're talking about, these 7,000 individuals. Of the women, those who reported that they were very happy, only 6.8% died. In comparison to those who were unhappy, 10.8% died on the other side of it. And then for the men, you see that those who reported they were very happy, 10.3% died, compared to 60% for those who were unhappy. So we're talking really about the mind-body relationship, the psychosomatic relationship. Psycho, the body, the psyche, the mind. Somo is talking about the body. The mind-body relationship. You and I think most of us know this, but if you don't, there is a very strong correlation between the body and the mind. Okay? And so the condition of the mind, our emotional health has a direct bearing upon our health. You see from the brain, from the central nervous system, we have emanating from the brain all of these nerve cells that permeate all through our tissues, right on down to our fingertips and down to our toe tips. Did you know you had toe tips? Okay? And so, when we are discouraged or depressed or down or going through grief or sorrow, I'm really concerned about a very dear friend of mine, the wife of my best friend. And Dawn and I have remained very close to Janice. It's been over 2 years, and she feels some guilt over the death of her son every day. Every day she's telling me she's going through a period of grief where she's shedding tears. And I'm concerned about her. I had this conversation with her just 2 or 3 weeks ago because I was checking up on her. Her husband's gone, so I keep an eye on Janice once in a while. She knows that. So I asked her how she was doing, and she was a little bit more open about it. She feels guilty that she had not stayed at home with her husband who was having symptoms. Now that was Bob. He was stubborn, and he insisted that she leave that fateful day that he died. She's an RN. She wished that she had stayed. And now she feels guilt and some kind of responsibility. And her good friend Charlene, I had a conversation with her, and grief is a serious matter. And we all have to go through a grieving process. It's sometimes natural. But it has a depressing effect upon the physical organism by means of those neurons, by means of those nerves that emanate through our body. So the mental and emotional health communicates those negative, the negative emotions through to our physical organism. It's a two-way street, by the way. If we're not feeling good, you have the flu. Tell me how up you feel emotionally. Are you just grinning from ear to ear and just really having a great time when you have the stomach flu or you have the aches and pains of the flu? Are you? You see, it affects the mind. And so it's mind and body that we must keep in the very best condition. We have a Bible text in Proverbs 17 and verse 22 where it says, a joyful heart is good medicine, but a broken spirit dries up the bones. A joyful heart is good medicine. You know, in our love for Jesus Christ, we have an advantage over the unbeliever. Because when we are going to go through trials, let me tell you, being a Christian doesn't guarantee that we're somehow going to be insulated from the problems, the challenges, and the difficulties, and yes, the trials that sometimes will come to us in life. But my friend, we do have a Savior who has promised to walk with us, one who has promised to sustain us. And if we have an active relationship, and if we have, have that, our daily devotions, and we are in touch with him by prayer, we have an advantage. We have somebody that we take our troubles to, and the assurance that he will bless us, and that his love and grace will sustain us. So take advantage of the benefit and the advantages that you and I have by faith in Jesus Christ. Okay, I think that pretty much covers it for this evening. Which means that we're ready for the theme song. So where did those singers all go to? I'm going to invite you to come back up here together.